And hello there folks, this is Uncle Troy with another video log, but there won't be any video today because I just don't feel like setting up the screen and getting all the lighting right and everything. So this video log we're going to talk about home theater personal computers, but first we're going to put up a list of our most recent new subscribers, say hello to all of them. Thank you once again for subscribing. It's not really necessary. YouTube lets you watch videos all you want without subscribing, but when you subscribe, when you hit the thumbs up button, when you favorite or share a video, that puts a little higher in YouTube's ranking. And so the next time somebody searches for a type of video that they're looking for, well, if it's got a lot of thumbs up or subscribers to that video, then it ranks a little higher in the search rankings, so it gets a little better chance of it getting out there. So every time you do a thumbs up, every time you subscribe, whatever you do, put a comment on my video, then that means more likely somebody else is going to find it, and I appreciate it. So today we're talking about home theater personal computers, HTPC, and that's a type of computer that instead of hooking up to a big monitor in your computer room, you're going to hook up to the big TV in your den or family room or whatever you call it. We call it living room around here. And I made one back 10, 15 years ago. I'm really not sure what the exact date is. Back when a program called Transformers Beast Wars was showing. That's when I set it up because I remember recording that show. Back in the old days, we had things called TV capture cards, which were very new at the time. And I picked up one and set it up so I could record stuff that was coming on while I was off at work or school or whatever. And I set that up and I think I recorded in like 160 by 120. Very, very low resolution, but it worked, and I could watch the show afterwards, and I had a lot of fun with it. And so I picked up 2 or 3 different types of TV capture cards over the years. And at the time, you did not have these fancy 10-foot interfaces, they called them. You just had the simplest little. So I think one of them I even had to hand edit text files in order to change how I'd record stuff, what channel I'd record and when. But it was pretty simple interface at the best. It was like an old VCR for those of you old enough to remember. You couldn't tell it, all you could tell it was something like every Wednesday at 8 o'clock record channel 12 for 1 hour, things like that. And so if you wanted to add a new show, you had to go in and type in and at Wednesday at 3 o'clock we're going to do this, and then Friday at 10 o'clock we're going to do this, and Saturday. And I used to have a piece of paper I just carried around with me where somebody said, "Oh, you've heard of such and such show? It's great. I think you'd love it, Troy. It comes on every Saturday night at 10 o'clock." And I'd have to write down the name of the show, Saturday, 10 o'clock, blah, blah, blah. And so I had done that over and over, hooked up to our cable TV, which was a fairly new thing in our neck of the woods, by the way. For a long time there, they didn't give us cable TV because we lived too far out in the country, and they said, "We don't service you out in the country with cable TV," which I always thought was odd because the whole purpose of cable TV was to bring TV to people who couldn't get it on an antenna. And we lived far enough out in the boonies that we got 3 major networks and a few public TV sources. And if we really, really wanted to watch a different station than we recorded out of the nearest large town, we'd have to go up on top of the hill and manually move the antenna where it pointed toward a different large town in the nearby. So when certain football games come on, it was my job to go up to the top of the hill, grab the channel locks or the vice grips, I think they were, and gently move the antenna where it's facing due north toward the nearest large town. And then when that was over, I had to move it back more or less due west, I think, to point toward the other town. But so when we finally got cable TV, that was a big deal. And back then, the cable TV would basically just run a cable to your house and then say it's up to you from there on. If you want to run 1 TV or 20 TVs, it's up to you. Just you need the splitters, dividers. Even told us to go to the local Radio Shack to pick up an amplified splitter if we wanted to run more than 2 or 3 televisions. That's what they told us when they set us up. And that's what we went with. And of course, over the years, things have changed to where now the They want you to have a little adapter box for every TV, and if you manage to hook up a TV to the cable system and watch TV without an adapter box, then you're stealing from them. You're a bad, bad person. Even though, well, at one point, when they started having digital signals come down the analog cable TV, my father called to ask what he needed to do to get these digital channels, and according to him, they actually told him, well, all you got to do is go out and buy a new TV with a digital tuner. As long as you got a TV with a digital tuner, you'll never need one of these little boxes. And according to him, they actually told him that cable TV needing little boxes. That's not true. That's just lies that the satellite TV people tell you. All you need to cable TV is just hook it up to your television. So he went out and bought a couple of digital tuner TVs, which is aside from the point, but he got very upset when they turned around and started scrambling all the digital channels and told him if he wanted to watch a digital signal, he needed a little box. So anyway, the point is, I had my little home theater PC set up with an old TV where I could record off the cable TV and watch it on television. And back then, that was something new and unusual. So after the second or third TV capture card I bought and programming it like an old 1980s VCR, I came across the concept of a fancier HTPC software, and that was called Sage TV, made by a company called Fray Technologies. Later they changed the name of their company to Sage TV because I guess they were focusing just on that. And that had an electronic programming guide, which you can get on some of the fancier DVRs, TiVo, and whatnot. But back then, on a computer, that was new and unusual. And so I bought some TV capture card that came with the early version of Sage TV. I liked it so much, I bought the latest version of Sage TV, and I started doing this fairly seriously. And I set up my TV capture card. Actually, I had two different ones at the time. And Sage TV was smart in a couple of ways. One was that since it had the electronic program guide, you didn't need to tell it, record Wednesdays at 9 o'clock for 1 hour. You had to tell it, I want to record a certain program, and if it came on Wednesdays 9 o'clock, it would record it. And it also was smart enough that if you wanted to record two different programs at the same time, it would check the electronic program guide and find that one of them might be rerun like 4 o'clock in the morning. So it would record one when it first came on and one when it was rerun at 4 o'clock in the morning. And if you had more, well, it got smarter. And so I think I had like 3 different TV capture cards at the time, or at least I think I had 2 TV capture cards. One of them had 2 tuners built in. And so I was able to record 3 different programs at a time, and Sage TV would manage that for me. And Sage TV, I think they called it Sage because it was smart, but it had a thing called intelligent recording, where if nothing was being recorded on a tuner and something was on that it thought you might like because it had the same main character, or not main character, actor, same actor, or it was in the same genre you've been recording a lot of science fiction shows, then it would record another science fiction show. If you watched a show with a certain actor and a different show came on with that same actor, or a movie came on with that actor in it, it would record it for you. And that was called intelligent recording, and it was actually pretty smart. And it even had an option, something to the effect of never leave a tuner idle, which meant if a tuner wasn't recording anything, it would record whatever was on whatever channel it was on, just so it would be busy, just so you would get more stuff recorded. And I never activated that part because I never thought that was really necessary. But the intelligent recordings did give me new programs that I enjoyed and new favorites that I added. You say, hey, that's a pretty nice thing. I want to watch every version of that. Now, of course, it also kept track of what I thumbed down, what I said, I don't like this, don't record it anymore. And there was a little bit of back and forth there where sometimes I think it just went crazy and would record everything on one channel for no reason whatsoever. And I would get, 16 hours straight of infomercials and whatnot. For the most part, it did pretty good. And Sage TV being written in Java, it was extensible, and people could write program extensions for it, plugins they called it. And they had a plugin called Intelligent Suggestions. So you could go through and you could look at what it was thinking of recording in the future and proactively mark that as no, I don't want that, or yes, I do want that. So eventually there came a time when I bought a couple of digital tuners, actually a thing called a Silicon Dusk HD Home Run digital tuner. It got two tuners and could record digital because at that point the local cable company had started putting digital signals into our analog. And so I had like 3 analog and 2 digital tuners, and I could record anything, anytime. Didn't matter how many of my favorite shows came on at once. And the odd chance that I couldn't record all of them at the same time, Sage TV would have them recorded by the next night anyway. And it was great, and it was fine and wonderful, and everything was just perfect and beautiful. And then the local cable company decided, hey, we're not making enough money off people. We need to do something different. And so they got rid of all the analog channels and encrypted most of the digital channels. So I ended up with my digital tuner being able only to, and this is irony for you, being able only to tune the local networks and PBS stations, public TV stations, because that's what the local cable company was sending unencrypted, was just the stuff that I could have gotten over the air on a regular antenna, as always. So I was stuck with just a few channels and only 2 tuners. Luckily, they when they made everybody go to digital, they gave us some free, little quote marks around free, free set-top boxes and digital transport adapters. And I've got one of the set-top boxes set here next to the computer so that it can tune any channel that the cable company is sending to us, and sends it. And if it's hooked up to a regular TV, it would send it through channel 3 or channel 4 to the TV. Instead, it sends it through channel 3 or channel 4 to one of my local analog tuners, which is all I have left. So I ended up with 2 digital tuners that can get me some of my local networks, and that's it. And then 1 set-top box hooked to an analog tuner that can record anything that the cable company is sending me. So I ended up with just 2 digital and 1 analog tuner now, and it works pretty well because, again, Sage TV is pretty good about looking at the upcoming 2 weeks of programming guides and saying, okay, he wants me to record this, but it's coming on again next week, so we'll wait and record it then. He won't know the difference, and generally I don't. Sometimes some guys at work will talk about a show, and I'll say, don't tell me. My DVR is recording that for me. Don't tell me about it until I get a chance to watch it. You may say, what does all this have to do with being an HTPC expert? Well, my cousin, TechDolphin, wrote me an email basically saying, hey, I hear you're an HTPC expert. I need some information on a new HTPC I'm putting together. And I tried to explain to him I don't know the latest and greatest about this, but he's like, hey, I read some of your old articles. You've talked to me. I've seen your setup when I come to visit. You've got a great HTPC setup, and you've had it for like 10 years. That makes you an expert, doesn't it? And I didn't think of this at the time. I thought of it later when I was explaining it to somebody else, that to say that I put together an HTPC setup 10 years ago and I'm still using it makes me an expert is like saying 10 years ago I bought me a Chevy truck and I'm still driving it. So that means I can answer all your questions about the latest Ford hybrid. Right? Doesn't happen. But anyway, so TechDolphin, he is putting together himself a new HTPC setup, and mine was just a regular computer that happened to be in the general vicinity of a large television. And now I don't even bother with the TV since I've got a 24-inch regular, computer monitor. But he is actually taking the time to gather up all the equipment he needs, all the pieces, a small form factor computer case, a small motherboard. I think he's going with a 4-tuner digital tuner, which he can go to his local cable company and get a cable card. I believe they're called, and so it'll be able to tune all of his channels. So he's going to have 4 channels, or 4 tuners that can tune all his channels, whereas I've got 1 tuner that can tune all my channels and 2 that can tune a few of my channels. So he's going to have a much nicer setup once he gets finished, and I have tried to give him my 2 cents worth here and there, saying, you want to do this, you want to do that. For example, I can say just from experience with regular computers that the solid-state drives, SSDs, are cheap enough and fast enough and small enough now that you might as well get one for your system just to boot up faster. And then, but a small one, like 100 gigabytes, just enough for Windows and some of your main programs and whatnot. and then a 1, 2, 3 terabyte data drive, and pretty much anyone will be fast enough for recording digital video these days because they get faster and faster as the time goes on. And I think I explained to him he might want a little more processing power than he thought, not just so that he can view Blu-ray, DVDs, whatnot, but if he wants to take his files that he's recording off of TV, his video files, whatever, and converting them to a different format using FFmpeg or Handbrake, which I've been using, I can bring my files down to about 1/10 their original size without making too much of a difference in the video quality. So he may want more of a powerhouse when it comes to CPU. Although the latest greatest video converters use the GPU, your video card will use parts of the video card to speed up the conversion, so that helps immensely. That said, I would think I talked him out of a 1 terabyte drive to at least a 2 terabyte drive for the data, just so you can record more. It comes in handy because you never know when you're going to sit down and suddenly decide this program that it's been recording for you, that you had ignored, is your new favorite program, and you want to watch a whole season of it, and luckily you have a whole season of it recorded, because I've done that a time or two. Now, unfortunately for the HTPC software, I cannot recommend Sage TV anymore because they no longer make Sage TV. Unfortunately, it was bought out by Google a couple of years ago, and Google has used some of the parts and some of the people that made Sage TV so great. If you've watched anything about Google Fiber or Google TV, any rumors, whatever, the good parts of that come from Sage TV. Trust me on that. And I would have loved it if they continued to develop Sage TV, continued to have made it better. They haven't. They've been keeping it running basically, so I can still use it. But at some point, I'm going to have to switch over to plain old Windows Media Center, which I think is what TechDolphin's going with. Windows Media Center wasn't an option back when I first started. It was, that Microsoft hadn't bought out the company that made that yet, I guess is what I'm going to say. So for TechDolphin, I suggested Windows Media Center. That is the big 800-pound gorilla right now. You don't want to go from a little, you could probably go on eBay or somewhere and find a valid license for Sage TV and a valid copy of the software, but why go something small that's discontinued when you can go something big like Windows Media Center? So that's what I think. So that's how Uncle Troy became a HTPC expert. Basically, I put together something that is still sitting here. I don't know if you could hear it, but I just tapped or patted like it's an old dog or something, the HTPC here next to me. It was my main computer for a long time. In addition to all this, it still ran the games and whatnot until I put together a new system, or had the local computer store put together a new system for me. And now it's my HTPC, it's my media server, it's my video converter, it's my, the thing that keeps running all the time, and it worked out good. And I'm no expert, but it's done me good, and I'm really, really glad that I put all the effort into it over the years. All right, and of course, my local cable company is talking about encrypting even the locals that they're doing now. So soon I'll be down to 1 tuner, but I also have something like 2 terabytes of stuff recorded from the past that I haven't had a chance to watch yet. So I think I'll be okay for a while. All right, this is Uncle Troy signing out. Please have a good night.